Well, family, good to see you all here. Hope you're doing well. Well, we're going to talk about a story that came out recently, and it said about 60% of Americans are on the verge of financial collapse. They don't have enough money to keep up with all of the inflation. And many of them, but you know what? Many people always live paycheck to paycheck, whether there's an inflation or not. But it seems to be getting worse, especially worse for people that never experienced it before. So they are feeling the effects of Donald Trump's economy, and it's not going well for them at all. So I'm going to share my screen. I mean, it's not too shocking that people are not doing well. Like, okay, okay, all right. Let me share my screen. All right. And it's not going to get fixed from this economy. I mean, Donald Trump, he doesn't know how to fix things. He just knows how to mess things up. That's pretty much all he knows how to do. Give me a one. Thank you. I see the ones. Thank you. All right.
So many Americans already believe that we are in a recession. They believe that the recession started a long time ago. They believe that the economy is currently crashing, and they are not listening to what you hear on the news. They are going online and they are sharing personal stories and showing the hardships right now that they are witnessing and what they're going through.
Is it just me or are we in a global recession? I mean, this is not normal. It is 9:40 in the morning, Thursday, September 18th, and this is how our shop is looking. Now, thank God I have a few inspections to do, so I'm going to stay busy today. I have like 14 government vehicles I have to do. But you can't tell me this isn't a government recession. Like, what the hell is going on here? I mean, as you can see, we're so busy. We have so many cars in here right now. 9:30 in the morning. We should be packed. We should at least have oil changes. We should have something. And before the people start commenting that, well, shops charge too much money. Our shop doesn't. We actually charge a lot less than we should to make good margins and actually make money. So we actually undercharge a whole lot at this shop, and we still don't have business. We are probably the cheapest shop in our area compared to all the other shops. Our labor is only 135. Other shops are like 150, 160, 180. Dealerships are like 200. And we do decent work. We do good work on cars. We never have complaints. We never have people come back. We never have returns. This is how our shop looks. This has got to be the beginning of the middle of a recession and probably the beginning of a depression. I've been here 6 months. I have not seen it this bad. And it's been like this for the last probably week and a half, 2 weeks. So what's gives? What's going on? Why is nobody coming in? If you guys are doing work on your own vehicles, respect. I respect that. I work on my own vehicle. You save a lot of money that way, but the people who can't afford to work on their own vehicles and have to bring it to a shop, they're not even here. I think we're cooked. Is it just me or are we in a global recession? I mean,
I don't care what anyone says. We are 1,000,000% in a recession due to the fact that Facebook Marketplace has been popping off lately. Like, people are selling their treasures that they've had in their basement or their garage because they need money.
How's everybody surviving? I get paid bi-weekly and we are a family of 4. We have 2 kids. How are y'all surviving? Because I'm not. I got paid today and it's gone. Goes toward the mortgage, cell phone bill, gas and electric, garbage, everything gone. Between insurance, car insurance between my husband and I, everything gone. And then I have to go to the grocery store. This isn't even factoring in groceries for a family of fucking 4. So imagine how it's like every month. It's like, do we go do a big load haul of groceries or do we pay our mortgage? Like I can't do both. And my husband works 50 hours a week. I work 40 hours a week. We can't do both. We can't do both. So like, how are you doing it? The people that don't have kids are barely surviving. I am not surviving. I am not surviving. And I get paid biweekly. And people are like, oh, getting paid biweekly is so much better because then when you get paid more. No, it doesn't matter because all my bills get taken out at the same every month. I try to change it to the end of the month. It still doesn't matter. It still doesn't matter. It doesn't matter when you have your bills taken out. Your money is gone. There's nothing you can do. You just have to ride on this floating rock and spend, $150 on 4 products at the grocery store. I can't. I literally cannot. I don't know how people do it. And unless you're a rich elite, so I hope everybody on this floating rock screams like I do, and we can all scream together because I just don't collectively know how I can continue on with a recession. I've lived through one recession. I physically can't do it now. And you can call me dramatic. I don't really give I'm going to crash out. I cannot survive like this. I can't.
So there's a pretty good financial indicator out there called the used car market. And the used car market is a good financial indicator of how your country is doing because it means that people have liquid capital. If you have liquid capital, you can buy a used car cash because most used car sales are going to be cash purchases. So if used cars are selling well, probably doing pretty good. People have liquid capital. They're able to buy whatever they want. They don't feel stressed about the future. They're buying and selling things at leisure. If the used car market is bad, then people do not have liquid capital. They do not feel secure about the future, and they're hoarding whatever liquid capital that they do have. And right now, the used car market is tanked. It's tanked. No one is buying or selling anything, especially the cash purchases. So not a very good indicator for us as a country or our economy. Either people have no money to spend or they are incredibly insecure about their future. And either way is not good. So we're going to see how this plays out in the coming months. But I don't see that trend ending anytime soon.
Retirement has become a real big issue here in the United States. In fact, a recent study has shown that 1 in 4 Americans believe that they will not be able to retire.
Okay, here's something that most people probably don't really think about because you're so used to seeing the elderly and maybe your own grandparents, the boomers that have their pensions, retirements, and that money's tight. They use coupons. They don't do much, but they manage. They get by. Most people going forward, especially if you're probably like under 50, you will never retire. Almost nobody will in the future. There's so many things that have gone wrong between the inflation, the complete removal of pensions. Even a lot of pensions that are out there are going to have trouble one day with the markets. You could talk about the national debt. You could talk about pending interest rates, but there's so much going on. I think Denmark, even over in Europe, they just pushed their retirement age to 70. That's what we're trying to do right now. We're basically going to have to push Social Security back. Nobody's going to get rid of Social Security. What they're going to do is they're going to push it back so far that you'll be dead before you ever get it. And it's because it's really an illiquid system. I think for every 2 people paying into it, there's somebody receiving it. The government has leached off of Social Security for so long. Then what they did is they attached the Social Security Disability Fund, which is, the last I checked, probably somewhere around 13 million people are collecting off of it. And that comes from Social Security also. So people used to get the full amount at 62.5. That's pre crazy inflation. And then even with that, you'll hear people say that, I can't live off of that. And what they do is they have another retirement. Like my parents, they're lucky. They did good. They were both retired military, and then they became teachers, and then they just retired as teachers. So they're basically both double retired. And now they get Social Security. My generation will get nothing. I did not work in the government. That's great for all those government workers out there that will get all those taxpayer pensions. But what about the rest of us that pay into it? Well, we're going to get nothing. I won't have a pension from a job because jobs don't give pensions anymore. And Social Security won't be there at the full amount at 62.5 like it was for your parents. You'll have to wait till you're 70 minimum. And by the time you get to that age, if you can hold out to 70 to try to get the full amount, they'll have pushed it back to 72, 74. The point is they need everybody to keel over because they don't have the money to give you anymore. The good old days are done. Inflationary pressure is still there, and it's going to keep going because your government doesn't know how to stop printing money. They don't know how to stop printing money, funding foreign wars, and doing things that basically destroy our dollar. And they just don't know how to stop. And the past 20, 30, 40 years of these politicians are going to have ruined everything for your generation and your children's. So it's interesting just when you think about it, like what happens when you get older? What happens when you turn 50 or 55 or 60? And let's say you're in a job that has manual labor and your back goes out or your knees go out. Well, they're going to start making it harder, I think, to even get Social Security disability because, again, it's becoming an illiquid fund. So just what's going to happen to people? My prediction is in about 10 years from now, I know a lot of areas homelessness has increased, but I really think in about 10 years, you're going to see a whole lot of homeless people. And I think America is going to become this weird place that almost dystopian, where it's just going to basically be the haves and the have-nots. It's already there. The middle class is already somewhat eroded out, but there's still a little bit left. Most people are tapped out on credit cards, have almost no savings, and are paycheck to paycheck. I've made a video about that before. As of last year, about 2 out of 3 people didn't even have $500 in their account, liquid money, in case something happens. So you got like 2 out of 3 people in this country that are basically a paycheck away from becoming homeless. Now, when the homelessness crisis starts to really hit, because people will lose everything, they won't be able to afford a home, won't be able to afford anything. This will also come if you have a major recession or a depression in the future. But as of right now, I'm just saying, as your age, we're just only talking about your age alone. But what's going to happen to people when they get to that age where they can't work anymore? They're really, really struggling to work. Those days of retiring at 60 or 55, they're over. I don't think people pretty soon will ever retire. I think you'll have to work until you unalive.
A few weeks ago, at the start of the shutdown, I covered the systemic fragility in the US economy and how it's become this complex, tightly coupled system where small shocks can cascade into massive failures. And I explored multiple angles of weakness, but at that point, it wasn't really clear where the catalyst might come from. And it's looking more and more like it's hiding in the most boring place possible, which is the US Treasury bond market, supposedly the safest, most stable market in the world. I'm going to walk us through this piece by piece because it's a whopper, but it's eye-wateringly technical. First, bonds. Bonds are how governments and companies borrow money. When the US government needs cash, it issues a bond, essentially a formal IOU. You give them money, they promise to pay you back later with a bit of interest on top. And so they get to keep running and you get a bit of return down the road.
I salute the boys and girls who are buying United States savings stamps and bonds through the Treasury's School Savings Program.
Some bonds mature more quickly and others more slowly, and each kind has a different percentage of interest attached to it. For decades, this system worked really well. Foreign central banks bought US Treasury bonds and held them long term because they were considered the safest investment on the planet. The US was stable, predictable, and it always paid its debts. But that's changing. With the US debt now exceeding $36 trillion and increasingly erratic policy decisions, foreign central banks are backing away and they're selling their holdings and looking elsewhere. The reliable long term buyers are leaving the market. So, who's picking up the slack? That's where things get not great. In mid October, the Federal Reserve discovered something kind of shocking. There had been a massive undercounting of treasury bonds held by hedge funds domiciled in the Cayman Islands. The estimates had been that they were holding around 600 billion, but the actual number they're holding is 1.8 trillion. Overall, this means they constitute 6 to 7% of the 29 trillion treasuries market. But between 2022 and 2024, they absorbed 37% of the new treasuries market. That means these hedge funds are buying 1/3 of the US debt since 2022. These funds are now the largest foreign holder of US debt in front of China and Japan. So, what are they doing with all of these bonds? I give you one guess. They're gambling. Specifically, they're running something called a leveraged basis trade. Here's how that works. Let's say I'm a hedge fund and I want to make $100 million basis trade. So I go to a bank or a private lender and I put down 2 million of my own money and borrow 98 million to buy 100 million in treasuries. So I've now borrowed 98% of the money to do this. And this is an average percentage for these kinds of trades now. The 98 million the bank loaned me comes with an interest rate, of course. And so the lower this rate is, the better for me. I buy the 100 million in bonds and then have to post the bonds as collateral for my $98 million loan, which I'm now paying 5% interest on. I then go to an exchange and sell the contract to deliver that bond at a fixed price in the future, usually somewhere around 3 months. This future price is usually higher than the price right now because bonds yield interest. I've now bought $100 million in treasuries and I've borrowed at 5%. My futures contract says I'll sell the treasuries at 5.15% more than what I bought them for, implying an annual yield of 5.15%. Because treasury bonds are normally extremely stable, the price differences I'm betting on are tiny, fractions of a percent. So I'll potentially only make 0.15% profit on this trade, which is $150,000. Here's what this looks like from another angle. You can see that I've mobilized $100 million in treasuries to make 5.15 million, but it costs me $5 million to get most of that. So my actual profit is tiny. And this is why I need massive amounts of capital to make this work. And I need to keep doing it constantly. So I'm going to roll over those positions every day if I can to keep that money machine printing. So zooming out, we have trillions of dollars in treasuries financed by borrowed money that are being rolled over daily in bets on tiny movements in price. What could go wrong? Clearly, a lot. We saw a crisis in 2020 when COVID hit and everyone rushed for cash. Banks stopped lending overnight, and hedge funds running these exact same basis trades were forced to dump their treasury holdings immediately in order to pay back those giant loans. The selling became a stampede and prices crashed. The Federal Reserve had to step in at that point and buy over $1 trillion in bonds just to stop the cascade. But that was with far less leverage in the system than we have now. We now have 2 times the amount of money being borrowed versus directly invested, and 3 times the amount of treasuries tied up in basis trades. After that crisis, the Fed created something called the Standing Repo Facility, where banks can go as a lender of last resort to get overnight loans if the regular lending market dries up. That's now being tapped at record levels. Banks are going to the Fed for overnight cash because they're either unwilling or unable to lend to each other through normal channels. The SRF was created in 2021 after the COVID crisis and saw basically no usage until this year. Since September, however, it's seen activity pretty much every day. And on Halloween, the banks borrowed 50 billion, which is a record. And that's from a place with higher interest rates than is supposedly available on the open market. Those interest rates are tracked through a metric called SOFR, the Secured Overnight Financing Rate. It's essentially the pulse of the repo market, which is where these hedge funds are borrowing their money every single day. If we look at a bit of historical data, we can see that before COVID, these basis trades used to be reliably profitable at half of the leverage. During COVID, money was virtually free. And after, with the interest rate almost doubling, these trades are only profitable with huge positions and lots of leverage. Add to this that regional banks are under pressure from commercial real estate losses and recent bankruptcies. First Brands and Tricolor, looking at you there. The government shutdown is draining liquidity from the system. And when the shutdown ends, the Treasury will need to issue massive amounts of new debt just to catch up, which will strain the market even further. Putting these pieces together, it's likely that a lot of the activity in the standing repo facility is being driven not only by the things that analysts have already identified, which is, the shutdown, commercial real estate exposure to the bankruptcies, but also these giant hedge fund basis trade positions that are being rolled over every single day. We can think of this like the deep financial system's check engine light coming on. So TLDR, the foundation of the global financial system, which is US Treasury bonds, is now substantially held by offshore hedge funds running enormous, highly leveraged, daily rolled bets that only work if nothing goes wrong. And right now, things are starting to go wrong. So, what could tip this over into a selling spiral? I'll be looking for things like a major hedge fund, private lender, or bank failing, a continued spike in overnight lending rates, a sharp, unexpected move in bond prices triggered by newly released government data, a poor debt auction after the shutdown, or contagion from any other market. So, stocks, especially the AI bubble, crypto, or commercial real estate that forces these funds to liquidate. If that happens and we get a wave of funds forced to sell their holdings, this will absolutely be the straw that breaks the camel's back in terms of the economy.
Americans are in bad shape financially. Let me share with you some numbers and then you let me know if you fit into any of these categories. So, average savings rates are down to 3.9%. That is far below the historical average of 8.9% of one's paycheck. You let me know if over the last couple of years you've been able to save less and less because of inflation and higher living expenses. The second thing, pandemic savings are now largely gone. So at one point, they were above $1 trillion in excess savings, which came from quantitative easing. That's down to about $190 billion. So you let me know if you've had to pull more and more from your savings accounts to be able to keep up with monthly bills. I think this is something that a lot of Americans are feeling now more than ever. Another thing that's concerning, nearly half, 49% of all adults have less savings or no savings compared with a year ago. So again, I want you to compare your savings today to 365 days ago. Has that number gone up or down? I think for most Americans, it's gone down because they've had to supplement their income to be able to afford their monthly bills. Now, on top of all that, which makes things more concerning, is that wage growth is up only 4.4% for the year, which has barely kept up with inflation. And last year, it was heavily outpaced by inflation. Now, I want to know if you've even experienced wage growth to begin with, because that's the problem with averages. A small section of the country may have experienced large wage growth, where the rest of the nation might have not, and it still comes out as positive. So I'm curious if you've even experienced wage growth in the first place. On top of all that, this one's really, really concerning. Over 30% have more credit card debt than cash reserves. That means that over 1/3 of Americans have a higher credit card debt, which is high interest compared to their cash reserves. That's dangerous because if you have more cash reserves, you can pay off your credit card debt at any time. But if you have more credit card debt than cash reserves, you have a high interest debt that you physically cannot pay off. That is a bad place to be. On top of that, 57% of Americans say that they could not afford a $1,000 emergency payment. Now, I understand that most Americans for the last decade have been living paycheck to paycheck, but such a high percentage who cannot afford a $1,000 emergency payment means that more and more Americans are living paycheck to paycheck currently. And that is only going to get worse if inflation continues to go up and wages do not keep up with inflation. So I guess the real big question is, we had all this savings from the pandemic and from quantitative easing. And a lot of people say that that's been propping up the economy because savings means spending and spending means economic growth. The moment that savings dwindles, spending stops, and the economy can move into recession. So I want to know your thoughts. I want to know if this is something that you've experienced personally and if you fit into any of these categories, because I think a lot of the country fits into one, if not all of these categories. And I think that living is getting more and more expensive for Americans. And that can put stress on the economy because spending will eventually stop, which could send the economy into recession. We'll have to wait and see. Nobody has a magic 8 ball, but all we can do is make presumptions based on data, not assumptions based on our feelings. And that's what I like to do here. So if you like personal finance and if you like world economics broken down in easy terms, then you're in the right place. I hope you stick around for the next video. Take care.
Over 65% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck today. Billions are spending money they don't have. Credit cards, cash advances. Hell, they're even skipping electric bills just to pay the fucking rent. If you're looking around wondering what's going on because the market's up, just remember, the stock market is not the economy. Credit card debt just hit $1.3 trillion. Delinquency, the highest since the end of the Great Recession. And everyone's emergency fund, well, those have been empty for a long fucking time. First comes the debt saturation. That's where most people are right now. Then comes the trigger, a layoff, a medical bill, a rent hike, something that forces someone to stop making payments. When enough people have hit that wall, the cascade begins. Layoffs accelerate, bankruptcies rise, and cars get repoed. That's when the cycle kicks in and doesn't stop. Less spending leads to more pain, which leads to less spending, which leads to even more pain. So if you're wondering, how's the market booming? While working families are drowning, the system is designed to float on struggling backs until they finally break them.
And I thought it was the UK that was on its arse. Seems like these Americans are really fucking struggling with the cost of living crisis. Check this video out. Tell me it don't break your heart. How can someone earning $80,000 a year be struggling to live? This is fucked.
Made, and we are literally the brokest we've ever been. Brokest we've ever been.
But I'm making the most money I ever had my entire life. My husband and I, between the two of us, gross, make like over $80,000 a year. And if you told me a few years ago that $80,000 a year was not going to be enough for a family of four.
I make more than what I made back in 2015. But I am still literally living paycheck to paycheck.
I have to work 60 hours a week and make $80,000 a year to make ends meet. That's insane. I can't even begin to wrap my head around it.
Financially, I don't understand anymore. I don't understand how I make $34 an hour and I can't function. I can't function. I can't pay my bills.
I'm making this video again because my first one was taken down for violations. I have no idea why. So we have another leading economist joining the growing chorus of leading economists that are screaming, like literally, that the United States is heading towards a major debt crisis. And he, along with others, is predicting this is going to happen in 2026. And he's talking about all the red flags that everybody is ignoring, way beyond increased prices and joblessness and no new job growth and so forth. He says it's all tied to the record-breaking price of gold right now. It's like at $4,000 an ounce. That central banks right now are accumulating so much gold because central banks are worried about two things: the value of the US dollar plummeting, they can see it happening, as well as the geopolitical tensions that are growing all since Donald Trump took office. And for some reason, central banks accumulate gold to hedge their bets because of what they see is happening. He says that Wall Street is behaving the same way they did before the 2008.
Bottom 60% of U.S. households don't make enough money to afford a minimal quality of life. Bottom 60% is a funny way of saying the majority. People are struggling to survive out here. Okay, they're working 2 or 3 jobs just to like make rent, and that's honestly atrocious in my opinion. When there are billionaires out here who be making more money in one day than we will ever make in our lifetime, and it truly makes me sad, to be honest. Like, how is this a fair world, especially when you know they didn't work for it? Most of them came from generational wealth. Me, personally, I come from generational poverty. So maybe not poverty, but yeah, poverty, okay? I don't care what anyone says. It's just crazy out here. There are people who can't even make their health insurance. There are people getting denied health insurance claims for actual help. It feels like it feels like this country is attacking its own people, because every day there's a recall on something, food recalls on this, that, and it's like, what is going on? Like, then they're getting rid of all our protections for water and food and FDA and NDA and all these numbers lettered corporations that he's getting rid of. Our way of life is drastically going to change very soon, and I wish I would have got out of the boiling pot beforehand, but I fear it is too late. Maybe it's not. I don't know. I just ain't got it. I don't have it to make the move. You know what I'm saying? But
the United States is about to break and nobody is willing to talk about it. If we as a country don't make a change here, we are cooked. The media doesn't give it the attention it deserves. Politicians won't say it out loud, but our country, it's drowning in over $36 trillion in debt. And here's the terrifying part. We're now spending more than $1 trillion a year just to pay the interest, not the debt itself, just the interest. It takes my breath away whenever I talk about it. Imagine you maxed out your credit card that you have, then took out more just to cover your monthly payments. That's what we're doing as a government and as a country. And when the bill comes due, it's you who's going to pay the price. Higher taxes, slash services, or worse, God forbid, a financial collapse that would make 2008 look like a hiccup. If we don't change course here, folks, if we don't stop printing money, overspending, and kicking this can down the road, your future, our future, won't be stable jobs and affordable homes. It'll be layoffs, rent that you can't.
60% of the American public is about to lose everything they have. People living paycheck to paycheck are about to go broke. The GDP numbers came in yesterday, and of course, the economy receded, which I predicted 2 months ago, and people laughed. Mark my words, the second quarter is going to be far worse. Tariffs on Chinese products at 145% are about to kick in, which means everything you buy from China on Amazon or elsewhere is about to go through the roof. Grocery store shelves are starting to empty at Walmarts across the country. And of course, grocery prices continue to soar. People who've been financing groceries on credit are starting to default on those payments. We are about to see an economic catastrophe. If you're in this 60% that has little or no money, please stop spending money. Protect your family. Trump does not care about you. Even if you voted for him, he's a billionaire. He won't suffer, but you and your family will. Please protect yourself. 60% of the American public is about to lose everything they have. People living paycheck to paycheck are about to go broke. The GDP numbers came in yesterday, and of course, the economy.
Y'all, it is bad out here. And, Donald Trump, the only thing that I noticed over the past few weeks, the only thing Donald Trump does, he goes on different news shows telling everybody that the economy is fantastic. No, it isn't. And he said food prices are down, gas is down, nothing is down up in here. And I don't even know why he act like we don't go out every day and see these prices. We go out there every day and see these prices, but he think he's going to con us into believing that the economy is so great under Donald Trump. He actually made it worse. Like I said, you know how he messed it up with all those tariffs. When he started throwing all those tariffs around, he made the economy far worse than it was under Joe Biden. And it got to the point where every time he goes on TV and says the word tariffs, the prices automatically jump up. It's ridiculous. And many people, even before Donald Trump took office, there were many people that didn't have good salaries to begin with. Now, so many people are in over their head. It's not just the credit cards that are not going to get paid. Student loans, they said the defaults are at a record high. People just can't pay this stuff. And to me, you should not even be allowed to open a business unless you give people a livable wage. If you can't do that, you shouldn't even be allowed to open a business or a corporation. That's how I see it. But there's a lot of people that are just, they're not making it. They can't make it anymore out here. And, I went back and I researched the economic crashes that happen. White people have always gotten help from the government. They never would help our people. And when you go back and look at the economic crashes that have occurred, our people never got a lifeline. Somewhere along the line, when you go back through the centuries, white people always got a lifeline through it. Now, what they usually do is when the economy is bad, they'll make sure they keep each other working, but they'll fire us or kick us to the curb. But they'll keep each other working, and then when the economy look like it's bouncing back, then they'll start hiring our people. And usually that's what they do. But they would give them all kinds of money and help to get through whatever market crash was going on out here. But they never ever extended that to our people. Our people had to pretty much fend for ourselves. during the Depression or any other financial crash that took place in the country, we always had to fend for ourselves. They never cared about us. So, wow. Y'all, I was looking at Jeffrey Epstein again. That mess is with Donald Trump is so deep, it's not even funny. There are articles out there, and I'm not sure if I'm going to do it or not, but I've certainly been reading up on it. There are articles out there that said Melania was dating Jeffrey Epstein a year before she met Donald Trump. So she's like a Jeffrey Epstein secondhand, used secondhand person, but she was dating Jeffrey Epstein. And then Jeffrey Epstein introduced her to Donald Trump. And that's how she hooked up with Donald Trump. Yeah, Jeffrey Epstein laid around with Melania. And she was always at those parties too. Donald Trump was not the only one at those Epstein parties. Melania was there too. Guess what they have out in the headline? That back then Melania was an escort. And y'all know what an escort is, right? Well, that's what they're saying about Melania. They said she was an escort. I said, well, hey, look, that's the first lady now, but she was an escort. Hmm. So much for that. Yeah, so much for that. I mean, it's just unbelievable the stuff that's coming out, even about her. It's not good. It's not good at all. Well, he wanted Melania to have more children with him, but she flat out refused after she had Barron. She wouldn't give birth to any more of Donald Trump's kids. She said no. I'm like, whoa. But yes, so she went from call girl to first lady. What can I say? What a leap. And I haven't touched this story. There's a rumor out there circulating that Erica Kirk is pregnant, claiming she's 8 weeks pregnant. But I think Charlie's been gone since what, 11 weeks now? I think about 11 weeks. So I have not been able to confirm that story, but there's quite a few videos that people been putting out talking about that. And some of them are talking about it's JD Vance's baby. I don't know. I don't know, but I said I'm not going to touch it because I can't verify whether she said it or not. You know, the only thing she did say, because she got interviewed by Megyn Kelly, and she just said that if she were pregnant, it would be a blessing. But she did say that, but I did not hear her say that she was 8 weeks pregnant. So I didn't come from the horse's mouth, so I'm a little reluctant to put that out there. No, Barron looks creepy like Donald Trump, though. If you look at Barron's face, Barron got that same creepy look that Donald Trump got. He does. I'm sorry. I think that's really Donald Trump's kid because they got that same creepy look on their faces. Hmm. Yeah, but you know what? It tells you how low this country has sunk. Look at who your president is, a 34 convicted felon, and his wife is An ex-call girl. You can't make this shit up for real. You can't make it up. What a joke. What a joke. But these are the people we're supposed to look up to? Wow. Wow, this is what we're supposed to look up to. Oh, man. Wow. For real. This is what we're supposed to look up to. I just think that's hilarious. Kind of makes the Obamas look like saints, don't it? It makes them look like saints. But this is what the country has sunk to. This is your leadership and your leadership's wife. Please, if Michelle was a call girl, you would never have heard the end of it. They would have still, shoot, they would be still talking about it now. But, Milan, it's okay. It's overlooked. Nobody will talk about it. You know how it is. Mm-mm-mm. So, y'all, this is my last live. Thank you for being here. And, I'll have a whole different lineup for tomorrow. So I will see you then. Shalom, family.